Good evening. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 17th. Before we get started, I'd like to make a land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge on behalf of Council and the community that the City of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none. Could I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All in favor? We have a presentation tonight. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan presentation. We're going to ask Mr. Durocher to introduce our guests that are joining us on Zoom. Go ahead, Jordan.
All right, thank you, Chair, and good evening. So tonight we have Kevin Lee and Kim Goodman of KA Community Consulting. They are in attendance online, and they are here to present the final Parks and Recreation Master Plan document. I should note that there will be a report that will be following, asking Council to adopt it. So with that being said, Kevin, Kim, welcome, and the floor is yours.
To share my screen here now, if you bear with me for just a moment while we get into presentation mode. All right, if you would just very kindly confirm that you see the presentation screen in front of you, I would really appreciate it.
I don't know why it's not on my screen. Okay, thanks. Yep, thank you.
All right, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I would like to start with a thank you very much for the opportunity to join you this evening to review the City of Pembroke's Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We plan to start this evening with a very brief recap of our earlier work, but do want to focus our time this evening on the details of the final plan that is coming in front of you later this evening. As I'm sure you're aware at this point, a Parks and Recreation Plan is a strategic planning process. Really, this is one that culminates in a series of recommendations for improving Pembroke's parks and recreational services. It is a 10-year plan that includes parks, trails, facilities, and more. And this framework is intended to help guide you as you make decisions, both as staff and council, over the coming years. Our work has taken place, oh my goodness, we started almost a year ago with the information gathering phase. We worked quickly into winter and spring, and we are really excited again to be here in front of you this evening. And I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Kevin, so he can share just a little bit more detail about what these phases look like.
Thank you, Kim. And I just want to take an opportunity to thank Jordan and Council for the opportunity to present tonight. Can you hear me okay? Just double checking. Great. As Kim described, we started last August really exploring facility assessments and learning and engaging in the community in conversations about parks and recreation services. And this involved, again, reviewing the asset management plans, the recreation agreements, those types of things. We spent significant time with staff and council, conducted over 15 one-on-one interviews, and certainly had the support of staff to promote the process through media releases, the website, posters, radio, and certainly word of mouth in the community as well. And we feel we've had significant engagement through the survey and the focus groups, and provided an update to council in January. That culminated with phase one. The next phase of the plan was to flesh out the goals and opportunities, and we were able to engage in a number of draft recommendations. These were shared back to the community at an open house held at Algonquin College in late June. We provided opportunities for the community to provide comment, feedback, agree, disagree with a number of recommendations, all of which were captured or are captured in the appendices of the final report. This slide highlights a number of, I guess, metrics in our community engagement process. We certainly really feel just had such amazing community engagement. We thank all the community staff and council for their input throughout the process. You know, having over 900 responses to a survey and 50 participants out to the open house, I think really sheds well on the opportunities for the community to be engaged in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And I'm going to turn it over to Kim to continue the presentation.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Kevin. So this is the stuff that we're really excited about this evening. This is really the conversation about your Parks and Recreation Master Plan. As part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, we've very carefully crafted a mission and vision statement that reflects a collective commitment to enhancing the quality of life for residents of Pembroke. You all have it in front of you, so I'm not going to read it word by word, but I'd just like to highlight that these statements are really to serve as a foundation for everything that we hope can be achieved through this Parks and Recreation Master Plan implementation. In addition to the mission and vision, we've outlined a set of guiding values. And these values are essential because they act as a compass, helping guide decision-making, ensuring that as we evolve over time, that we continue to adapt and grow and stay true to a set of core principles. By embedding these values, such as inclusivity and accessibility, we ensure that parks and recreational spaces continue to meet the evolving needs of residents, creating spaces where everyone feels welcome and can benefit from the parks and recreation services that Pembroke does have to offer. So now that we've sort of laid that foundation with a mission and vision, I'm going to pass things back over to Kevin, who's going to highlight the strategic goals that are that have been created for you. These really define how the plan comes to life.
Thank you, Kim. As Kim just mentioned, a number of strategic directions evolved throughout the project. Consistent feedback from the community on a number of, we call them big moves, pillars, strategic directions for the plan. The first major move or strategic direction was this creation of a recreation destination. And we've captured that by exploring the feasibility of creating a new regional multi-purpose recreation facility with an aquatic and wellness-focused mixed-use hubs, quality indoor facilities, where the community can gather and play. Obviously, further exploration by means of a feasibility study would be required to determine preferred site, partners, costing, to determine what degree this endeavor may be achieved. And certainly, this is not a new conversation throughout the discussions that have been occurring at council and within the community, but certainly has been a major theme throughout the process. A second strategic direction was the investment in staffing capacities to deliver quality recreation services. And this pillar was really a consideration to, increase staffing capacities is essential to the operation of the department for operations, programming, applying for funding, those types of things moving forward. Big move number 3 was to deliver strong programs and services and continue to deliver strong programs and services, because this is something the city does very well. There's a strong and robust team, is critical to advance programming, and certainly significant support is seen through the solid volunteer base and strategic partnerships to promote and support program delivery. The fourth pillar was managing assets with a long-term lens. And certainly this is something that many of you have obviously been involved with. is monitoring the city's assets with a strategic lens and structured manner to determine the best course of action for future investment. And strategic direction number 5 was to become leaders and continue to be leaders in environmental stewardship. And Pembroke certainly has taken strides to safeguard its parks and trails, ensure residents and visitors are easily able to navigate through the vast green space available in the city. And we'll just move on to the next slide, which sort of summarizes the major recommendations of the plan. And we've created the big moves in the strategic directions as I've just described, but we've also created 73 total recommendations, as you can see on the slide here. 24 in asset management, 23 in service delivery, 12 in climate environment, and 14 recommendations around health and well-being. And certainly the full framework of recommendations can also be found in appendices, page 171 of the Parks and Rec Master Plan. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Kim to share some specific examples.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kevin. Again, I think the recommendations, if we loosely clump them together, would fall into categories that you see in front of you. But some real concrete examples of action that can be taken is, for example, renewing and updating shared use agreements or cost sharing agreements. So we know that these are pivotal to, the financial resources. It creates partnerships and opportunities for residents. There are recommendations that, include investing in your most valuable resource, which is your staff. This includes making sure that you have adequate staffing levels required to support a council-approved service delivery levels, but it also helps lend to risk mitigation, staff retention, and a whole myriad of benefits to the municipality. There are recommendations that address seeking out opportunities for improving accessibility in public spaces, making it easier to navigate and for people to access those spaces so that they can take place in programs and opportunities. There are recommendations that include implementing tools, and I know you guys already have a wonderful sign policy, but how do we look at that and pivot a little bit to include wayfinding signage, which not only enhances a recreational user experience, but also really lends itself to supporting economic development and tourism within the city. We have additional recommendations that speak to embracing technology to support the customer service experience, but more so for data collection purposes to help inform future decisions. That can be done through software that I understand has recently been implemented, such as ActiveNet. There are 74 recommendations, as Kevin alludes to, and many of those recommendations have multiple actions that align with them. And we certainly don't see this happening overnight. So included in the framework is phased implementation. What you will realize as you work through this then is that you're going to see opportunities for quick hits and big wins, but we also have to take pause and recognize that there are other recommendations that will really only be realized over a much longer period of time. It requires additional investment, partnership building, etc. So again, if you look in detail, it is the last appendices within the document. This is just a screenshot of that level of detail that is included within the plan. This framework with this level of detail is really designed to support staff as they put this plan into action. It's not our goal to leave your team running around going, what did they mean by that? But to provide some clear direction and examples for staff consideration. So I'm going to send it back over to Kevin now at this point.
Thanks again, Kim. As we've noted, there is a great series of recommendations included in this plan, and we certainly realize it will take significant resources to make it happen. For example, we have included a number of different funding strategies, and many of these are ongoing in the community as we speak. The Friends of the Regional Pool Fundraising Committee, user fee review and adjustment, enhancing the municipal reserves for recreation specific activity, and certainly exploring funding opportunities, for the example, community sport and recreation infrastructure funds, streams 1 and streams 2, which are currently open and available for the community to apply for. It's obviously a significant number of funding strategies required in order to make the plan come to life. We certainly encourage the monitoring evaluation of the plan as well as you move forward through the short and medium and long term of the plan. So we encourage consistent review and evaluation of the proposed actions. Continue to monitor the data on usage statistics and regular dialogue with the community, reviewing and evaluating preceding year's activities, those types of things. And certainly an annual reporting on implementation is also suggested. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kim to wrap up.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Kevin. I would like to close with a few key points here. First of all, being that I just don't want us to lose sight of the fact that there are so many great things already happening within the city of Pembroke. Really, this plan is designed to support the good work that's already happening and provide a little bit of direction for enhancements or improvements where it makes sense. We have truly made every attempt to balance community needs with emerging trends while considering the necessary resources needed for fulsome implementation. We are so incredibly grateful to you, Jordan, and to your entire team for the endless support that you have provided us through the process. And we are so excited to have had the opportunity to work hand in hand with you and look forward to seeing an active, healthy, vibrant Pembroke. Thank you so much. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time. And now I have to figure out how to stop doing a screen share. So please just bear with me for a moment. Have I stopped sharing now? No. I can't, that's not coming up on my monitor now.
Should be right at the top.
At the top.
It might be a tool that is something else is covering it. There you go.
There we go.
Good.
There we go. All right.
Well, thank you, Kim and Kevin. Are there any questions? Councillor Purcell.
I think not more of a question, but more of a comment. I think, after reading the report, I don't think that there was any big surprises in regards to our current state in terms of our recreation offerings. I do like that you pointed out that we do have an older population with the majority of people above 55 plus, and that accessibility, inclusivity is really important. We do have new Canadians that are coming to the Pembroke area, and sometimes you have to pivot and look at the types of services that we provide and kind of look at, does it still make sense what we did 50 years ago compared to what we're doing today. I think you touched on a couple opportunities. I know one of the things that's always concerning to me as vice chair is Parks and Rec is the staffing capacity. So we need to really look at that. We can't deliver programs if we don't have appropriate individuals in the right places, making those right decisions and providing those services and supports. And in the big picture, the multiplex recreation facility, we definitely need to look and move forward in terms of looking at the future, in terms of what recreation looks like within the city of Pembroke, and not only the city of Pembroke, but within our regional area. And, I think you touched on, managing assets appropriately. And I think we're doing a better job than we did in the past in terms of, making sure that we're looking at those assets, making sure that they're, that they're valued, that they're in working order, and that we're looking at an end of life and what are we going to do out when that end of life period approaches and how we're going to replace that asset. And also just the opening of agreements, which I think is really, really important in terms of, a lot of neighboring communities utilize our Parks and Rec services. So I'm just questioning in regards to the 900 respondents, how many were actually City of Pembroke residents compared to residents within the region? I wonder if you could just answer that for me. That'd be greatly appreciated.
Certainly, that is a very good question. You'll just have to bear with me for one moment while I pull the document up in front of me. We do have that data included in the summary of the community survey in the appendices of the document. Might just take me a moment to pull it up here. Here we go. 66% were full-time residents. About 2% identified as seasonal residents, and the balance, almost 33%, identified as living in a neighboring municipality.
Wow.
So I guess my question is, based on those responses, do we feel that we've accurately reflected the wishes in terms of the residents of the city of Pembroke in regards to their vision for, parks and recreation moving forward?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, I should be doing this a little bit more following proper decorum, and my apologies for not having done so earlier. I will say, and it's very much as Kevin alluded to earlier, because we had the opportunity to engage in focus group conversations, a series of one-on-one dialogues and learning conversations, it all sort of allowed us to not only focus on what makes sense for Pembroke, but again, to take a little bit of a broader look. But I am very confident that Pembroke's voice was heard as part of that process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? Deputy Mayor.
Technical difficulty. Anyway, thank you for presenting tonight, and it's good to see this come to fruition. It's been a long time coming. The last council tried to get it off ground, then we had COVID, kept getting delayed. So it's a good roadmap for the city, and it's great to see that we're well aligned with what the residents want as a recreation destination and programs and services. And I was really glad to see the youth space and senior space recommendation in one of your appendices. That's something to look at in partnership with the local youth hub. That's important, and it's referenced that we build a new space, having space for seniors also, especially with the growing popularity of sports such as pickleball and that. It's really important. And yes, we do have a lot of work to do with asset management and big decisions to make in the next couple of years with our plan, either to renovate aging facilities or build something new. Thank you once again.
Yes, seeing no more, I want to thank you both for being here tonight. And this is, like Deputy Mayor said, we've been waiting for this. Nothing was a surprise. I think we all know where we need to be. I sit on the City of Pembroke Tourism Advisory Committee as well, and it's not too far from recreation, if you know what I mean. I mean, we're talking about how to get people to come into our community and that type of thing. And when it comes to the trails and the wayfinding signs you were mentioning, it was actually brought up last night that there are, I believe, 10 signs now that we have, but we're just waiting now for operations. They've been approved by the county. So, there's a lot of steps to take before, but apparently we're hoping those are going to be installed by early 2025 or something of that nature. So, but something surprising, the murals in our community, believe it or not, like last year, I know some people don't think it brings value, but one of the highest requests online was murals. Like when we went for the data of when individuals are looking why they're coming here, they're interested in the murals. It's been proven that they're coming here. So I asked the tourism director, Elijah, to actually come in and present that to council because I was blown away. Apparently, live music is another one, and we do feature that in the waterfront every night in the summer. So we're doing some things very well, and so this plan is going to ensure that we're moving in the right direction, and we continue. Thank you very much. Jordan?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Just one last comment. I just want to thank Kevin and Kim again. We worked very closely over the last year, and we've had many conversations. And I will honestly say that they put their heart and soul into this. So I just want to thank you guys for all your hard work, and we really appreciate the document that you put together for us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good night. Okay, moving
now.
along. Bye now. The Transportation Master Plan update presentation. Brian, Mr. Lewis. And with Mr. Lewis tonight is, I believe, Mr. Kevin Jones from Paradigm Transportation Solutions Limited. Okay, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just report, a very brief staff report, is for information purposes only. The City of Pembroke has partnered with the Township of Laurentian Valley, as we're all aware, for the development of a transportation master plan that focused on the east-west traffic to develop a strategy addressing existing traffic concerns and a plan to meet future transportation needs. So Mr. Kevin Jones from Paradigm Transportation Solutions Limited, he is here this evening to provide committee with a presentation and to discuss the recommendations provided in the draft report. There are no financial implications at this time, and staff will be bringing reports forthcoming as the Transportation Master Plan is finalized and as we do have action items that are being developed. So Mr. Jones is ready to present.
Thank you, Brian. And through you, Madam Chair, and your worship and members of council, I'm pleased to present a summary of our Transportation Master Plan that we've been assisting the city and the township developing over the last almost 2 years now, as we kicked off in December. A little bit about the study. Obviously, Pembroke and Laurentian Valley are experiencing some rapid growth. We're seeing that, and it's ongoing and expected development within and around the city boundaries is putting pressure on your local road network. Particularly east-west roads are particularly affected by local growth and traffic passing through the community as well. The limited crossings of your rivers make those challenges a little bit more pronounced in certain corridors. So the east-west Transportation Master Plan had the objective of examining the existing and future needs for roads, sidewalks, and active transportation infrastructure in the study area, and addressing those needs by developing plans and policies to help support future growth. So in terms of our study process, we established a study area that covers the whole township and the city proper. However, the focus, based on where the growth is occurring, is on needs in and around the city of Pembroke, around the boundaries and within the city itself. As we looked at the study area, though, we did consider travel patterns to and from Petawawa and other external areas to the city. Our study process followed the master plan process outlined in Ontario's Environmental Assessment Act. And the master plan process looks at project requirements at a high level. It doesn't do the design for the projects, but identifies sort of systematically what are the right projects to do and how should they be prioritized in the community to achieve your objectives. Major projects that are recommended in the plan will require further environmental assessment studies before you be able to implement them. But some of the projects like intersection improvements can proceed when funding permits and as the city or the township is ready to proceed. So the Transportation Master Plan process, as I mentioned, follows the environmental assessment process for major infrastructure projects. The complexity of the projects determines how many steps out of that process we follow. A typical master plan covers phases 1 and 2 of the environmental process, which identifies the needs and opportunities and looks strategically at different solutions on how to address those needs and makes recommendations. The steps following the master plan depend on the degree of complexity of the project, which may looking at different design alternatives, doing public consultation as you do that, and then looking at implementation plans, environmental study reports, and then actual design and construction work to follow. So the master plan process wraps up with a document that gives you a roadmap in terms of the types of projects you need to start thinking about and budgeting for the long-term needs. In terms of public engagement, we hosted an online survey to kick the project off. We had a website for both the township and the city with information on the website about the project. We did have one public open house in December of 2023. And then we've also had some discussions with Renfrew County as they're doing a transportation master plan as well. We wanted to ensure that some of our projects were in alignment with the county. Our online survey had 164 participants. About 40% of them were residents of Pembroke, so we had a good distribution of participants in the survey, a good distribution of age groups in the survey as well, although we do note that we had lower participation in those under age 25. It is often challenging to reach that demographic in these types of longer term projects. One of the things that came out through our survey and through some of our review of travel patterns in the area is there is a real opportunity for enhanced active transportation in the community. You've already got some great trails, you've got some great sidewalk infrastructure, you've got some good destinations for people to walk and cycle to. And about 9% of residents travel under 2 kilometers to go to work or school. So there's a real opportunity that you might encourage some of them, not every day, but to walk or cycle a little bit more than they do today. And that will actually help relieve some of your pressures and promote a healthier community as well. But there's barriers to achieving greater active transportation use. And safety was a key barrier most people identified for cycling, and distance obviously is a key barrier to walking, with a lot of people not able to walk or not willing to walk greater distances to get to their destinations. In terms of resident priorities, there was a really strong support for improving the conditions of roads in the township and in the city, but also coordinating things like traffic signals and turn lanes at intersections, and really only widening or building new roads when they're really needed to support growth, as opposed to just for general purpose. There's also a strong preference for separating cycling facilities from traffic, and investing in enhanced pedestrian crossings, and using traffic calming where needed as a way to manage traffic and some of the growth in traffic that you may see in some neighborhoods. Our public open house had 12 attendees. It wasn't hugely popular in December. We held our open house at the Shady Nook Recreation Center just outside the city in the township. But we did get 41 comments received for the display material. The display material was posted online on both the township and the city websites. And we did get a lot of comments from people through that process. I shouldn't say almost all, but a good majority of comments supported some of the recommendations in the plan. But we did get a number of ideas from residents, and we've actually gone back through our work and incorporated some of those ideas into the plan that I'll be presenting to you very shortly. Thanks. As I mentioned, we did have a project webpage on the city and township websites to help advertise the study, and to give an overview of some of the public open house display material and provide contact information for those who wanted to reach out. So as I mentioned, growth is driving the need for improvements in the community. We looked at historical growth rates in the community, but we also, we're aware of a number of development applications, within the city and on the boundaries of the city that are driving new growth over the next 20 years. And we actually developed a plan to try and address that pending or potential growth that staff are seeing at the application level, which is actually higher than your historical growth rate has been in the past. In all, the plan is forecasting about 9,000 new residents in the study area over the next 20 years. And that will be through a number of new dwellings, and a lot of those are in areas within the city, but also in the township, just around the edges of the city. So in terms of developing the plan, first a little bit of context on sort of how we plan for traffic. We don't plan for the worst case traffic conditions. That if we did that, we'd overbuild your system. Nobody can afford to widen all their busy roads. So we actually looked at sort of what's the strategic time frame that we think best manages your needs. We understand, and we had data that shows summer travel patterns, fall travel patterns, and spring travel patterns, and surprisingly they're not hugely different between each of the seasons, but they have different intricacies and different peaking characteristics. Over a typical day in the summer, you have about 95,000 auto trips that happen in the study area, which includes Petawawa. About 40% of those trips travel within the city of Pembroke and within the township. About 21% of trips travel between our, what we call our study area and Petawawa, so there's a lot of interaction with Petawawa. And 13% of trips travel between Petawawa and the city and the township. 22% of trips travel to and from external areas. So whether that's on Highway 148 to go to Quebec, Highway 17 as you go to the south or to the north, or to areas to the south and west of the township. And 3% of trips pass through. They don't stop or end in the study area, they're just passing through. Most of them are on the highway system, but they are accounted for in the travel demands. And you do see them on Highway 148 as people head towards the border crossing. With planned growth, there are some planned improvements. The Ministry of Transportation, as I'm sure you're aware, is looking at some improvements to Highway 148. That's essentially looking at widening the corridor, providing a center turn lane, intersection improvements, and some sidewalks through that corridor. And that widening will actually help manage some of the traffic growth and congestion on the Pembroke Street corridor over time. But that's not going to manage all of your growth. So what we've done is we've built a transportation model to help us forecast, how will traffic grow in the future as you grow and as the township grows? What roads are going to see the pressure from that increased traffic? And the map showing here on the screen kind of highlights, after we look at things like improvements to Highway 148, where are we expecting to see congestion during that sort of typical summer weekday period? Again, as I mentioned, we didn't look at the summer weekends. That's sort of what your peak worst case scenario. But that typical summer condition is what we've used as our planning scenario. And what we found is, congestion will grow and it will happen more frequently. So as you get into the future and as you grow, if nothing is done in your transportation system, you'll see congestion more often on some of your major roads during those typical summer weekdays. So initially, we identified 6 improvement alternatives for assessment. And these alternatives were really designed to help draw traffic away from your downtown and to make use of the river crossings that you have, but also to protect and serve the growth areas so the traffic didn't have to infiltrate through neighborhoods to get to where they're going in the community. So you'll see in total, after we looked at feedback from the public, we added 4 new alternatives. There was 10 alternatives that we assessed using our transportation model to help identify which ones work the best in terms of serving travel demands, and how did they change travel patterns, and how did they achieve some of our objectives in terms of the projects. And some of the alternatives including enhancing Mary Street and Alfred Street within the city, extending Dewville Drive into the new growth areas on the boundary of Pembroke, looking at Boundary Road extension and widening of Pembroke Street West, O'Brien Drive connection, a local bypass route using Drive-In Road and a new connection to Mud Lake Road to try and, again, provide a route to allow people familiar with the area to bypass the downtown and take some of that pressure off Pembroke Street. We even looked at a new MTO bypass to see, what would that do in terms of solving your issues. And then some of the projects we added was things like the Quarry Road extension to connect, from Paul Martin Drive through to Dewville Drive and into the growth areas. Looking at the Boundary Road extension without a widening of Pembroke Street, and that was something that we found during our project that maybe made some sense. And a Boundary Road extension to TV Tower Road as an alternative that we tested as well. And then looking at sort of a more limited Alfred Street connection through an unopened road allowance to provide improved connectivity into the downtown. We did an evaluation of each of those alternatives using the approach outlined in the municipal Class EA process. We looked at it from a number of different perspectives. We looked at transportation, performance, how well each of the alternatives serve the transportation needs. We also considered things like social impacts, impacts on neighborhoods, impacts on areas near schools and things like that. We looked at environmental impacts from open space areas, natural environmental impacts. And then we looked at economic considerations in terms of the cost of some of the projects and sort of the benefits that you would derive out of those projects. And at the end of the day, we ended up with 5 key projects that we're recommending be included in the plan. A number of them had some benefits, but they also had a number of drawbacks that made us kind of think they weren't really the most appropriate improvements. So, out of those 5 alternatives, we have the dual drive connection to Drive-In Road, a local bypass route established mostly using the county road system with Drive-In Road, a new connection to Mud Lake Road, and Boundary Road, kind of serving as that sort of local bypass of the city for those that know their way around and can use that to, and it also serves all the growth areas. All those growth areas are served by those roads. So it helps that people don't have to travel through the downtown to get where they're going. Quarry Road extension and a Boundary Road extension without a widening of Pembroke Street West. And that was kind of an interesting thing that was a little surprising to us, because when we tested widening Pembroke Street West, we actually found that drew more traffic into your downtown than leaving it as is, because you add capacity, it actually drew traffic off TV Tower Road and some of the routes that people are using to get around the downtown, and it funneled them into the downtown, and you really don't have a lot of options to make improvements in the downtown to accommodate that traffic. So we thought that not having the widening of Pembroke Street West was better for the city as an overall basis. And then the limited extension of Alfred Street to provide improved access for those on the east side of the downtown to get to the Highway 148 corridor without encouraging Mary Street and Alfred Street to become a local bypass. And that was one thing that really was why we didn't recommend the Mary Street upgrade, was because, with all the residential uses along that street, that would become sort of the new bypass of downtown, and some of the impacts associated with that would be a little, wouldn't probably be in the best interest for the city. So the road network improvement program I spoke to already in terms of the major projects. We also identified a number of intersection improvements that could either go as standalone projects or would go along with some of the major road improvements. There's 32 road improvements identified. Some of them are new road connections. Some of them are upgrades to existing roads. Some of them are simple intersection improvements, and we've also identified some corridor protection opportunities for long-term needs and to ensure that those connections are available if the opportunity arises or the need arises in the future. The network was really designed to serve the traffic from the growth areas, limit the increase in traffic on Pembroke Street, and really limit the increase in traffic on some of your local city streets. Now, there's a lot of projects in here, we recognize that, but this plan is designed to be implemented over the next 20 years. And really, on top of that, should be designed to be implemented as growth occurs. So we've got forecasts of growth, but I don't have the magic crystal ball in terms of how fast that growth will actually materialize. It may happen a little faster given some of the current activity, but it may occur a little slower as well. So really the plan is intended to be reviewed and monitored to adjust as need be. In terms of the recommended cost, it is an expensive program. Some projects will be funded through development charges issued by the township and by the city. Some projects may be constructed as part of development, so some of the road connections actually serving the new development areas will be built at least to a local road standard by the developers building those subdivisions, and then really the only extra cost would be the cost of oversizing those roads to upgrade them to a higher classification. There are cost-sharing opportunities for some projects, and we've identified, the list of projects, the recommended costs or the estimated costs in today's dollars for those projects, and sort of who would be the ideal proponent for that project, whether it be a city project, whether it be a township project. Some of them are shared proponency, and some of them might be combined with the township or the county as well. On top of that, we have a number of intersection improvements. As I mentioned, some of them could be standalone projects that you could implement when you see the need arise, or the township could implement when they see the need arise. Some of them would be implemented as part of the larger projects, but the intersection improvements would help those projects perform better. And a lot of the projects and intersection improvements were designed to improve the efficiency of the network you have, as opposed to a lot of road widenings, because road widenings are very disruptive to the community. They cause a lot of impacts, but doing things like putting in turning lanes can really preserve the capacity of a roadway and allow it to last a lot longer before you have to make bigger types of investments. So a lot of those intersection improvements were designed to make sure those roads can last and serve your needs. The overall cost of the program is about $95 million. That's without allowing for any cost sharing or without the developer contributions. Those are just the quantity of the projects, and that will be implemented over a 20-year horizon. In addition to the plan, we've got some policies recommended to help support the plan. Our policy areas looked at transit, walking and cycling, roadway classification systems, some traffic management types of policies, some policy direction around the Highway 148 corridor, and then some official plan policies and corridor protection policies to help you manage your system as you grow and as the city and the township evolve. For transit, that was a key issue that was raised through the public consultation. We understand and acknowledge and know the city is now implementing the recommendations from the transit feasibility study. And I know you're looking at putting in a demand responsive service covering the whole city plus the Walmart Plaza area, and that's along the lines of what the public was asking for throughout our consultation. Our recommendation is that the Laurentian Valley, the township, actually look at partnering with you to try and extend those services just beyond the city boundary, because the residents outside the boundary don't recognize those boundaries, and a partnership might be a way to extend transit services into those neighborhoods as they develop, and that will maybe help take some pressure off of some of the road network as well. In terms of walking and cycling, we've separated our policy directions between the Pembroke and between the city and the township. The compact nature within the city really means that there's a lot of local trips. They're short enough to encourage walking and cycling. Our recommendation is the city should really look at preparing an active transportation plan to identify some opportunities, trail opportunities, new cycling infrastructure opportunities, and then priorities for how you might address missing sidewalk links in the community and in areas where you might rationalize the sidewalks you do have as you reconstruct some of your roadways. And the city should review and update some of the existing trail crossing designs and pavement markings and signage in conjunction with the county, because we know they really manage the Algonquin Trail, but some of the crossings are sort of that joint responsibility with the city and the county. From the township's perspective, they have been working on an active transportation and trails plan. We've been working on that on their behalf. They've identified a series of new infrastructure and some policies to support walking and cycling in the township. We had a public meeting in June of 2024 to present draft recommendations, and we're just wrapping up the study now and looking to present to Township Council in the fall. In terms of road classification and traffic management policies, both Pembroke and the township should look at the creation of design guidelines to help manage your roadways as they get reconstructed and tied to the roadway classification system. So a lot of the design guidelines look at ways to naturally manage and control traffic, implement traffic calming where it makes sense through some very subtle design treatments that make roads look less like highways and more like city streets. So design guidelines can help in some of your growth areas. You can give them to the developers and say, yeah, this is what we expect and how we expect you to design the roads, but they can also be used by your staff to say, when you're doing a reconstruction, are there simple things we can do to help improve traffic or pedestrian safety in a corridor? We also suggest considering adopting policies and processes for reviewing requests for speed management and traffic calming on city and township roads. More and more, these two issues are becoming very linked, and a lot of municipalities are starting to link them together to have one integrated process. Often a complaint may come in about speeding, but it might not be a speeding issue, and you might be able to deal with it either through enforcement or the way the road's designed or through traffic calming measures. So this process, and we've developed a framework for this process in the report, can be a tool that your staff can use to help manage those requests as they come in. And as you start to see growth in your community, we're expecting that you'll see some more requests for these types of measures. We're also suggesting the development of a permissive truck route system around the city. to help guide trucks to routes that are appropriate for them. And they work hand in hand with truck restrictions that you already have in place. So instead of just putting the restriction in place, but put that permissive route system in to tell trucks where you expect them to go. And that would be, again, trying to take advantage of the bypass, the local bypass configuration that we've set up through the road network improvements, and trying to link them to the provincial highway network as well. And the Highway 148 corridor, this is mostly for the township in terms of policy considerations. We did a peer review of the planned reconstruction of Highway 148. We looked at elements of the design, how they're providing sidewalks, corridor management opportunities, and intersection improvements. And generally speaking, the improvements are going to be a good improvement to the corridor. So it should be well received once the construction finally is done. And but there's also some opportunities. And one thing we did find is their growth forecast really didn't account for the local growth in the study area. They looked at historical growth, and they've designed a plan to deal with that. But local growth is going to put pressure on the Highway 148 corridor over time as development occurs, specifically the development along the east side of the city. And we've developed a road network plan to try and help manage the growth on the Highway 148 and on Pembroke Street East. But we also suggest that, development approvals on the MTO section of Highway 148 is going to cause the township some challenges as they move forward. They might want to investigate the feasibility of assuming that section of 148 from Drive-In Road into Angus Campbell as a township road after MTO has done construction under the Connecting Links program. So that's something for the township to think about. And again, we continue to advocate for a review of the Highway 148 Greenwood Road intersection configuration. We strongly feel that a roundabout configuration would work very well at that location. MTO so far has not taken us up on our request to really review that, but we're hoping that with continued advocacy, perhaps there might be an opportunity that they'll revisit that. In terms of the official plan, the City of Pembroke and the township should look to incorporate some of the policy measures into your next update to your official plan. This would look at things like the roadway classification system, more so for the township. They don't really have a classification system for the roadways. The city does. But adopting that into your official plan, road widenings and right-of-ways, entrance spacing policies, those things should all be outlined in your official plan. Any active transportation facilities that you may do or the township may approve often are now being incorporated into the official plans. And looking at future right-of-way requirements as well to ensure lands can be secured at the time of development approval where there's road widenings required. We've also identified some policies for corridor protection and we've identified some future corridors, but those should be protected in your official plan as well. So things like Angus Campbell Drive and Rankin Street, there's the offset intersection. That's an area that we should be protecting to make that realignment, because if growth ever happens on the other side of 148, that intersection is not going to work well. And similarly, there's a new connection to Highway 148 near the Walmart Plaza that we're recommending for corridor protection for the township to allow for an additional connection to Highway 148. It just helps distribute traffic, because what the problem with 148 is if you limit the traffic to too few intersections, those intersections take more and more green time to serve the demand, and then Highway 148 suffers as a result. We've also identified a corridor protection for some of the projects, the longer-term projects identified in the plan, which would include your drive-in road connection to Mud Lake Road. There's a couple opportunities, a couple different corridor routes you could do, and that's where a more in-depth study will be needed to identify which is the best route going forward. And for the Quarry Road extension and the Boundary Road extension, just to protect those in your official plan so those corridors are available when and if you decide to move forward with those projects. And the maps here just kind of illustrate some of those corridor protection areas that we've suggested, just to protect and preserve your opportunities to implement improvements when you need to. In terms of funding, there are a number of potential funding sources available. Development charges, as I mentioned before, cost-sharing agreements with developers for specific improvements and with other levels of government. There are, the traditional infrastructure funding programs through the gas tax or the community building fund. Green municipal funds can offer some funding programs for certain types of projects. And then there's always federal and provincial infrastructure funding programs. And one thing about the master plan is it kind of sets you up to take advantage of some of those opportunities when they come along. So for example, we know there's going to be a federal election coming up in the next year or so. You can bet there's going to be new infrastructure programs that kind of come out around the same time frame. And those would be nice opportunities to kind of say, we've got a plan, and get your applications in. So having a master plan at least positions you to apply for those opportunities when they come forward. And then, of course, you've got city, township, and county cost sharing agreements for certain types of projects, and the property tax base is obviously one of the sources of funding that you will need to consider as you look to implement the plan. One of the final recommendations on funding is that these projects should be incorporated into the next update to your development charge bylaw. For the city and for the township to make sure that growth is actually paying for growth, and that you can recoup some of those costs as growth occurs. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Again, we have Councillor Purcell first. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive transportation master plan update. It's really appreciated. A couple quick questions. Has a one-way Pembroke Street and a one-way Lake and Nelson Street kind of been considered in terms of your assessment? I know that this came out years and years ago. In fact, I even have a copy of that plan from, 20 years ago. Is that something that would alleviate some of the transportation woes in terms of east-west travel? I wonder if you can comment on that.
Through you, Madam Chair. We did actually look at it. It wasn't a formal alternative that we tested and evaluated for a couple of very good reasons. One is there's a number of communities that do have one-way systems through their downtowns. A lot of them are pulling them out and converting them back to two-way streets. My hometown of Peterborough, they keep talking about converting their one-way streets back to two-way streets. But one of the challenges with putting in one-way street systems is it does promote sort of that through traffic mentality. So you've got a nice downtown, Pembroke Street is a wonderful street. You've got a lot of good shops and services, and converting to a one-way street, my view is that would actually work against some of the business objectives and work against some of the community objectives. If you had good development on both streets, it's workable, but you've got in one direction on Nelson Street, you don't have a lot of destinations or development to attract people to. So you'll get a lot of circling of traffic trying to get to where they're going, because now they've been forced onto another street and there's nowhere for them to go to, and they'll either the businesses will lose half the traffic, or people will do a lot of circling through the downtown to get to what they're going. So for that reason, that was suggested by some of the members of the public. We didn't carry that one forward and give it much assessment beyond saying, it's not really, we don't think it's the right solution for Pembroke. Some of the other alternatives that we identified to try and spread traffic out to some of the other routes will help your downtown as well and take some of that pressure off without, making it inhospitable to the business environment and some of the objectives you have for, keeping your downtown healthy and vibrant.
One other question, it's just in regards to the cost-sharing opportunities. I see one of the opportunities is the Matheson Drive. I just can't see that working in terms of blowing through Matheson Drive to support an LV development area, just because of the nature of the road and the proximity of the homes to the to the roadway. It's bad enough I don't think even supports two-way traffic right now. There's people even parking on the streets to get mail, and there's no place for cars to park on that street. So I know that they were talking about widening under the major road projects and blowing that through. Is there a consideration in terms of doing that to go one way? Because you'll have the same issue at the corner of Bell Street and Matheson. Like, how are you going to manage that corner? It's not like you can put lights there. People will be sliding down the hill and it'll be just a collision area. So I just don't see that working, and I really have concerns about that. So that's the Matheson new road construction A and the Matheson Drive upgrade, and I think those are the ones that I have concerns with. But I just can't see that working. And then if you're trying to protect the Rankin Street and Angus Campbell intersection, that's going to cause more traffic to divert that way, because I think individuals will be turning right on Angus Campbell down to, you know, the Rankin Street intersection and going left or right, depending on where they're going to. So I see some challenges with that in terms of just making sure that that works, because you talked a lot about some of the social impacts that it has, and I think that it's going to really impact that neighborhood greatly because of, I mean, you can see some of the vehicles, if you go there now, they're hanging onto the sidewalk right now. You can't even transition the sidewalk without hitting a bumper or something along the line, so, in some cases. So I know there's opportunity to expand on one side of the road, but not on both sides of the road. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to comment on that. So the intention of the Matheson connection was really, and it's really intended as a local street connection, so it's not intended as a thoroughfare, but it does provide connectivity. And one of the strategies that we tried to do in looking at how to serve that growth area in the township was to try to provide an alternate for local traffic that don't have to use 148, to come out to the intersections, to use 148 to get to where they're going. They might do some of the local streets to, you know, make those shorter trips. So, and some of the other improvements, you know, in the growth area, the connection of Dewville Drive, those are intended to be more the arteries, Robinson Lane. Those are intended to be the main routes serving that growth area to take traffic out of that area. So Matheson wasn't expected to be, you know, a heavy traffic route, but a connection I think makes sense there, just to provide that local connectivity. And it's not just for vehicles, but also for pedestrians. If you don't have the connection, you know, people aren't going to be able to walk between the communities and to walk to the schools or the shops along the 148 corridor. So it was really a connection intended for that purpose as well. And recognizing that, you know, we did suggest an upgrade to Matheson would likely be in order. That could be looking at improving the sidewalk infrastructure, maybe widening the platform of the road a little bit over time to allow for that on-street parking to occur and still allow for two-way traffic. But it was not intended to be a major roadway or any sort of upgrade in classification. Yeah.
Councillor Keel?
I have a stupid question, a comment, and then an actual question. The 95 million, that's today's dollars?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that's in today's dollars. If I
So that
can't
won't
forecast.
that won't be tomorrow's
That
dollars.
won't be tomorrow's dollars, that's for sure. And if I knew the inflation rate going 20 years, I'd be in a different business. I'd be in the
Fair
financial
enough,
advisor. But yes, it's in
going to be
today's
a
dollars.
lot more than 95 million.
Yes, it will. And hopefully, as you know, hopefully things like your tax base and stuff keep pace with inflation, so it doesn't become that sort of escalating outside of the rate of inflation. But yes, it will be higher than that by the time you implement some of the
You would
projects.
think that's what this council has done with its tax increases, but yeah, no. Matheson Drive, I have to agree with Troy, Councillor Purcell. My gut feeling, and I certainly wasn't there, but my gut feeling is that back in the day when planning was taking place, they did leave that connection there for a reason. And then I'm thinking we too densely built up that area more than we should have for that potential connection to occur. In meeting with Mr. Lewis, who's absolutely fantastic with explaining things, I think he basically confirmed to me that most people are actually parking on city property because most of their driveway is actually not part of their land at the moment. So widening that, you're taking everybody down to, I guess, a one car parking spot. Good luck with that, I guess, is my thoughts. So I just, I mean, for the most part, I'm going to leave things to you. You're the expert in parking, but I don't know. I just don't see how we don't absolutely infuriate the people living on Matheson Drive by road widening and potentially taking away some of their driveway parking. I guess potentially the answer to that, I guess, is street parking for those same people, but I don't think anybody's going to find that as ideal as parking in their driveway, even though they're not actually parking in their driveway, they're parking on the city paved portion of their yard. So I'm nervous about that one. At the same time, when you look from a higher view, it also makes perfect sense. So that's why I'm saying this one's more of a comment, but That one probably makes me the most nervous of everything that you've done. With respect to the question, could you explain the reason not to extend the Boundary Road part in the west?
Excuse me, through you, Madam Chair. So we have recommended Boundary Road extension, but what we pulled out of that was the widening of Pembroke Street West. So what we found when we tested that scenario is that adding capacity on Pembroke Street West actually diverts traffic that's already going sort of around the city and pulls them into the downtown. And it actually makes conditions in the downtown on Pembroke Street West worse than if we did nothing at all. So sometimes you put capacity in the wrong spot and you get those unintended consequences. This was one of them that we found through the modeling work that we said, no, this actually doesn't make sense because now you're going to have a bottleneck that you really are it would be very challenging to improve that section of Pembroke Street West to add the capacity needed to serve. And then you're just funneling them into the downtown even more. So when we looked at that, we said the Boundary Road connection makes sense to help people get to this local bypass that we've created using Boundary Road and Drive-In Road to get to circumvent around the downtown. And that connection just makes that a little more easy to use and a little more easy to access without the adverse impacts associated with widening Pembroke Street West.
Mayor Jerva?
That all?
Otherwise, I mean, I'm very grateful to have this. Frankly, a report that big, I'm actually a little shocked that I didn't find more things I didn't like about it. So that, I mean, it's a very comprehensive report, and yeah, that.
I just knew that, that you were wanting to make a comment. So from myself, it's a number of different comments. First, to thank you, Mr. Jones, for, as was said, a very comprehensive report, a lot to chew on. In other words, read it once, read it twice, try and look to see, is there anything that jumps out at you, that sort of thing. And I hope that staff were helpful in providing anything that needed to be provided to you when you're trying to develop it. One of the things I find very interesting as you're presenting this to us is you're talking about whenever work is being done, and as you're doing the work, you're thinking about and having the foresight to think about how can we do traffic calming, how can we do pedestrian traffic, and the director is very good at doing that, and so it's very pleasing to get a report that says you should be considering all this, and guess what? Staff are already doing certain things, so it's like, yes, we're getting certain parts of it correct in that regard, and then pointing out other items, because there's certainly certain things that you've considered and so forth that I hadn't. I don't think it comes to anyone as a surprise that the city of Pembroke is the hub and supplies water and sewer to not only our municipality but the neighboring municipality, which is why, in terms of development and in terms of choke points and so forth, that it's Pembroke and it's the immediate surrounding area. Really pleased that you were also looking at traffic going to and from Petawawa, so my spouse being one of them every day, going back and forth to Petawawa, and so you're watching that traffic pattern and seeing what does that translate into in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of our roads. And I recognize what Councillor Keel is saying. This is the dollar amount that you're looking at, but I believe that there's certain parts of this that can be implemented that is that it's doable, if I can put it that way. I know that when I met with the CAO before he became the CAO and the previous CAO, and they were asking what are some of your thoughts and so forth. One of them that I was talking about was Alfred Street East at the time, and to a lesser degree the Quarry Road situation. They said, wait for the transportation plan. You're not, and no disrespect, but they're saying to me, you're not the transportation guru. You let them develop the plan, and then they, does it actually look how you see it, or maybe it's something completely different. And I think that those are manageable. For instance, Alfred Street East, I think I wrote down 2.1 million to punch it through. And I recognize that some of these things may require expropriation, and some of these things may require finessing, but it is what it is to try and alleviate some congestion, because I think any one of us that has been on Pembroke Street East at certain times of the day, seeing traffic going all the way from the lights all the way up to Midas, Muffler and beyond, I think we all recognize that there is an east-west concern. And I recognize that you're looking at a certain time frame and not necessarily the worst case scenario, but it's the worst case scenario that we in turn hear about as councillors, because individuals are calling in saying, oh, you're doing construction on Nelson Street and now you're bottlenecking it to Main Street, and how come you didn't consider this? So overall, very pleased with your report. Lots to chew on, and I believe lots to support, not only support staff and what they're doing, but also then coming back to us saying, how about we explore, A, B, or C? Particularly, the more I look at your report and seeing the Quarry Road, because I know in terms of discussions about trying to get heavy traffic, I'm not trying to divert traffic that is economic development to our municipality. It's driving large vehicles that are pounding our streets. If you're already trying to get to 148, well, and you want to bypass Pembroke anyways, why not open up something that's going to get them the heck off of our infrastructure and pounding it? But without Madam Chair was talking about our tourism meeting, and so without causing a negative effect on the economic development that already happens in Pembroke and driving, individuals into Pembroke that are going to shop, but trying to drive the larger ones that are pounding our pavement on the outskirts of Pembroke. So really appreciate the report. Lots to chew on for us in the months to come. Thank you.
Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Chair. So again, great report. Certainly a lot to digest. My question, though, is, well, maybe as a comment first. We have a plan here, Council, and there, we've understand there's timelines that are kind of given, but also we as a council have our own timeline, our own agenda. What, just look at the plan. They say a Quarry Road extension. It's in 10 to 20 years. Well, I don't think we need it in 10 to 20 years. I think we need it now. Like we talk about, we're going to be upgrading. Like Town Line Road is done. Basically, it's potholed, heaved, everything. We know we're going to replace that. Why are we going to spend a bunch of money there replacing that road just to have truck traffic go pound it down again? If we do a Quarry Road extension sooner than later, then we can improve Town Line Road, and then we're going to keep that heavy truck traffic that wants to access the industrial sites off our road. Makes sense to me. So I will disagree on some of the timelines, but certainly I know there's a presentation and understanding that this is what foreseeable traffic flow could be, but also council has its own timelines and understands what it needs today, as well as the Boundary Road extension, understanding that maybe traffic counts or development may not warrant it, sooner than later, but I'm just thinking that that's another great road to get people to off the main street onto Boundary Road to then bypass, that then take them, don't go down through our downtown, that don't need to go downtown, to then access, to do a bypass that way. So there's a couple of things that I will disagree on timeline, but I will say that it's a great report and gives council definitely some starting point to have a future conversation about which priorities we need to set right away. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, and then I'll like to comment from the chair.
Thank you. So thank you very much for the presentation. It's a good roadmap for the city. Our share is about 33 million in today's dollars. We don't know what that'll be down the road. Big challenge, but at least we have a plan. I agree with some of my colleagues about Matheson Drive. I have concern there. Quarry Road, yeah, we should fast track that. Maybe even Alfred Street. I was glad to see about the transit. People get people in one vehicle, less cars, more cars in the driveway. Active transportation important also. Question about the truck route, and I think Mr. Lewis and I have discussed this before. Years ago, it used to go down Lake Street, Nelson Street, and now it's going through the main street of Pembroke. And is that because we're waiting to fix Nelson and Lake Street with the major upgrades with the plan that we have to fix so many blocks per year when we have the money, and you can't turn right on, the trucks can't make the turn on Howard Street, or what is the change? I've had some comments from downtown restaurants, the trucks going through patios and that, but just to clarify the truck route situation, Mr. Lewis. Jones, good comment.
I'll let Kevin comment first, and then I'll take over after that.
Yeah, so that's a good question through you, Madam Chair. So our intention on the truck route was to provide a permissive system through active signing to guide trucks to the routes you want them to take, recognizing that trucks are still going to have to come into the downtown to do deliveries, to come through, to service your businesses and things like that. So that's part of the truck route. But you'll also have an alternate route suggested for those trucks that aren't really coming into Pembroke, but they're just following the highway signs or those sorts of things. There's another route that we would suggest you sign as a permissive route to get them out of the downtown if they don't need to be there. So that was sort of the design of the truck route idea, is make use of that local bypass through Drive-In Road and eventually the connection over to Mud Lake and Boundary Road gets them out to the highway. Quarry Road can play a role in that if that's something you implement in the shorter term. And that will get some of the trucks that are just looking to get to Highway 17 out from following the highway signs and coming in through the downtown. But you're going to have some permissive truck routing through your downtown to service deliveries, and your businesses will rely on those trucks to come in to bring their supplies.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. If council would permit, I'd just like to make my comments from the chair. Did you want to?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just make a further comment regarding the truck route. We are doing a little bit more research to find out when the truck route changed. It was a number of decades ago. Things have changed a lot within the city of Pembroke and the surrounding area over the years. The east end of Pembroke has built up Walmart, Canadian Tire, and the Home Depot, and a number of larger box stores that weren't there before when the old truck route was there. We all know the condition of Nelson Street, and not having the heavy truck traffic on Nelson Street really helped us extend the life of Nelson Street until we can get in there and complete it. The changes within the downtown core with the connectors. We have to be careful about how we get those trucks making those turns at those intersections if that's going to be the major route. One of the things that Kevin and his team have looked at, and what Kevin has just mentioned, is if there's a vehicle, a large truck, leaving the box stores in the east end of Pembroke and they're trying to make their way up to the west end of Pembroke or into Petawawa area because they got further deliveries to do, some of these alternate routes, some of the options that Kevin and his team have recommended will allow those trucks to get around and not have to take the downtown. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of choice for them if they're trying to make that east to west corridor run right now to do a second delivery. Hardware store to hardware store or lumber store to lumber store type of thing. They've got to make it from east to west or from west to east, and the alternatives aren't there. A number of the alternatives that Kevin and his team have recommended will help us with that. But I may have some more information in the next little while on what that change was.
Okay, thank you. That'll clarify for the downtown merchants. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, thank you very much for your report. I agree with the comments that were made about Matheson, and I do believe that this council did not support making Matheson a connection to that subdivision. I do believe we did not, as a whole, support that when we discussed it here. So I was surprised to see it on that list, so it doesn't mean it's carved in stone, in other words, I guess. I guess I have one question, and then I have just some information I noticed that wasn't there. What is traffic calming? Is that just monitoring? If you could answer that.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, traffic calming is a series of techniques to try and address driver behavior, reduce speeds, typically applied in neighborhoods. It can be things as simple as like the radar feedback signs that you already use on some of your streets to let people know, hey, here's how fast you're going. But it could also be other types of devices that you might use or even pavement marking treatments. There's a whole
speed
series.
bumps and
Speed
things,
humps
okay.
can be one form of traffic calming, but there's other things like pavement narrowing.
Okay.
The way you design your intersections, if you extend the curbs out, you you can tighten the intersection so it makes it feel a little tighter, people slow down a little bit more, and it makes your pedestrian crossings a little
Okay.
easier because they got a
Okay.
shorter crossing distance. So a series of measures like that to help
Thank you.
control traffic.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So I guess my question is in regards to any collateral damage that might be felt by specifically the bypass of Boundary Road going west and connecting with TV Tower Road. I love that idea, but was there any thought put into the impact it's going to have on Boundary Road inside inside Pembroke? Boundary Road is already heavily driven. It does not have a any stop signs or lights from Bennett all the way over to Forest Road. So that is going to become a speedway. There's also a large development going in off Elgin Street, which is a dead end. And I don't know what kind of impact that's going to have on an already hazardous intersection. When we come down, you're familiar with the city, obviously. You come down Eganville Road to Boundary, and there's a staggered intersection between that and Elgin. That's already very difficult on any day to try to get onto Boundary. So with this increased bypass traffic, was there any thought about that intersection? Because there was talk about it. We weren't sure how we would configure it, but that may be an option also for a roundabout, because it would do two things. It would slow the traffic on Boundary, and it would help get the residents moving in that intersection, because I really think that would be collateral damage. And if we just went ahead and put that bypass in and that development of it's over 100, I believe, residential units, that's going to have a huge impact. So I don't know if I see Brian's making notes. Yeah, that's all I wanted to mention, so.
And through you, Madam Chair, part of the plan does look at some intersection improvements along Boundary Road, so that will help some of that, mitigate some of that concern. A number of the developments are already planned to have either traffic lights, once they build out, or turn lanes to help make, accessing those developments a little easier. So I think we've identified a couple of intersections for potential turn lanes and traffic signals, which will help not only manage the traffic flow, but it'll also help your pedestrians trying to cross Boundary Road, because it's going to get busier. So having controlled pedestrian crossings will be a good thing for the residents to be able to cross the road and get to destinations. We also identified an opportunity for a potential roundabout at the end of at the end of Boundary Road at Forest Road, which would help to, slow some of the traffic as they're coming through Boundary Road, but also deal with some of the interesting right-of-way rules that you've got at that intersection now, and facilitate the extension. So that's, again, at that end, we've got the roundabout treatment. We also suggested some turn lanes at Trafalgar and Brewham Avenue to help that offset intersection again work a little bit better, so that traffic, if they're trying to turn, can get out of the through lanes into a turn lane, make their turn a little safer. So a few things like that will help Boundary Road as it evolves into that bypass.
Thank you for that. And then Councillor Plummer was sort of saying, Quarry Road on a priority rather than waiting up to 10 years. I would say Boundary Road extension too would be a huge one to alleviate the pressure coming in on Pembroke Street West. So I would be moving that up on the priority list as well. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I would like to thank Kevin. Thank you very much for this very informative. We've been waiting a long time for this, and you have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. And we'll invite Jordan back up to speak about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
All right, thank you. So the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Committee recommend Council of the City of Pembroke adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan by KA Community Consulting as a guiding document for the Parks and Recreation Department by defining key strategies subject to staffing capacities and annual budget approval. So my background and my report essentially is what was presented this evening, so I won't waste any time, and I will turn it back to the chair.
Okay, so, okay, lots of people want to talk. That's great. Councillor Purcell, then Councillor Keel.
So I'll make the motion to move that the Parks and Recreation, that we recommend to City Council that we adopt the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Okay, moved by Councillor Purcell, and I believe Councillor Keel's intent was to second the motion. Deputy Mayor, were you going to second, or did you want to further comment? Okay, so it's been moved, seconded. Further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. And good evening, Jordan. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All in favor? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
evening, everyone. Welcome to the Operation Committee meeting of September 17th. Are there any discussions of our disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Motion to approve the meeting agenda, moved by Councillor Keel, second by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? Approved. So first up, a new business, the FCM grant application, the Green Municipal Fund update. The Treasurer, Ms. Lochte, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone, and thank Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund for an on-demand transit pilot project covering the first 2 years of a proposed 3-year pilot. So if successful in this application, the grant program would provide funding of up to 50% of eligible costs to a maximum of $50,000 or $500,000. So I did speak to the FCM program officer assigned to our file last week, and they did advise me that the council resolution that was passed in August needs to reference the specific financial commitment that matches what was presented in the application. So as part of this discussion, I was informed that I can still revise project timelines and costs based on the most up-to-date information. So at this point, there are going to be some changes to the application, and I thought I would take this opportunity to give you a bit of an update on the transit pilot project itself. So we have hired Left Turn, Right Turn as the project manager for this project, and they have advised me that the RFT, based on their experience, should be open for 6 to 8 weeks for response by proponents as opposed to the city's typical schedule of 3 to 4 weeks. Again, based on their experience, Left Turn, Right Turn indicated that a 6-month period is likely needed for a vendor to initiate the service prior to launch. So this would put us more into the summer months. And as such, a 6 to 8 week soft launch is recommended to tweak the service, with a full launch of service scheduled for September 2025 is expected. So this is seen by staff to still meet service objectives because it does coincide with the start of the school year at Algonquin College, and will decrease the funding amount required for the 2025 budget. In terms of our budget for 2025, for a municipality of our size, an annual advertising budget of between $20,000 and $30,000 is recommended. So I will put that recommendation into next year's budget proposal. And as was discussed at the last council meeting, ORES and ORPC are currently working on a more precise costing for the supply and installation of 2 fast chargers, with revised costing to be provided to the city by Thursday this week. So following the September 3rd committee meeting, I did go over the proposed location with ORPC and ORES, and they did recommend a slightly different location on the other side of the parking lot, which would decrease installation costs by roughly $20,000. So staff are supportive of this change, as it will save costs and will not significantly impact available parking spaces in the lot to support the arena. But speaking to the Director of Parks and Recreation, he has mentioned that there will be some additional snow clearing that will need to be required in that particular section, as it does currently house sort of excess snow in the wintertime. So I will be updating the financial tables for the FCM grant based on the most up-to-date information, which I will submit back to them no later than September 26th. This puts us in the timeline for their November 2024 board meeting, which means that if everything goes well, we should know by Christmas time whether or not our application is successful. Based on the information that I have submitted, I have provided a summary of my application totals for each of the milestones for the project. So we're currently in milestone 1, which is developing an on-demand turnkey transit service RFP. So we are expecting to issue that later on in October. And then we'll need to continue on the project with milestone 2 to develop the transit service, milestone 3 to launch the delivery of the service, and then milestone 4 is to evaluate the project for FCM for our final reporting. So these numbers do differ from a previous report given to council back in February, I believe. Typically with grants, you don't want to be optimistic, you want to be conservative with the numbers that you present because you don't have an opportunity to go back once the application is reviewed by the grant program. So they are on the pessimistic side of the line, whereas the report in February is more the optimistic side. I have included an additional $20,000 in revenues for advertising, so roughly $10,000 a year, which was not in my previous report. But I do have significantly higher costs, particularly as it relates to the operation of the transit service, as well as some pretty large contingency figures in the report. An electric service will be more expensive to operate, and that has been confirmed by a few other providers of this service. However, we will receive additional funding if we're successful with this grant application to cover off some of these higher costs that are expected. So at this point, I'm looking for a recommendation from the Operations Committee to recommend approval of the city's revised draft resolution in support of the city's application to the FCM Green Municipal Fund to council for a transit pilot project. Once the RFP results come back in, I'm still waiting to get an updated schedule, but I imagine it will also be in the November-December timeframe. I will be presenting sort of a more finalized budget with tax impacts for council decision, and at that point, we'll be at a kind of a go, no-go decision for council on this project. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Lodgety. In the report you gave us today by email, you have a contingency of 431,000. So the figure is 2.6 million, but that includes a contingency of 431,000, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct, and it also includes staffing costs, which is part of the city's base budget right now, but is an eligible cost for recovery as part of the grant program.
Right, okay. And I was reading the original motion that council approved for the RFP last year, and it was 900 and some thousand for year one and 940 for year two, which is 1.8 million. And then you have a contingency funding here, but the thing to remember, this is an application for $500,000, and you, like you say, you were conservative in your estimate. As you say, you have to include all your figures to be safe, because you can't go and add figures back if you get the grant. So council still has to approve the tender that has to come in within budget for the actual service provider. And part of that is also, if we get the funding, and hopefully we do, is to approve the grant funding. So this is more or less a formality. So I'm going to make a recommendation that we accept the your recommendation, your department's recommendation to approve the resolution tonight, to the revised resolution to the Green Municipal Fund.
Councillor Purcell?
I will second that motion.
Further comments? The Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to support the motion, but I must say that when I, on the weekend, was reviewing the report and I went back to the February report and saw a figure of approximately 1.3 million, then I get a report that talks about 2.4, and then it's talking about let's round it to 2.5, and then today get a report at 2.6. I recognize that it's going to go out for a tender and we'll see what comes back. But I got to tell you, hands down, if this is the kind of numbers that comes back, I think before this council has talked about what is a percentage increase to taxation and how much does it generate. That's, as a colleague of Councillor Keelan, I would say is that that's a lot of cabbage. That's a lot of money. So when I read it, and sometimes, you know, I apologize for sometimes sending emails in the middle of the night or whatever, but you're reading the report going, wow, that's a lot of money. So I recognize what this motion is about. I do not agree that it's simply, well, the previous motion didn't record the 2.5 number because it wasn't 2.5 before. I'm going along with it, but I'm anxious to see what the advisory committee does in terms of transit and so forth as well, but that's a lot of cabbage. Thanks.
Councillor Lafreniere?
Yeah, thank you. I felt the same way when I saw that number. That would be over 3 years, so that would be 800,000 a year for 3 years. I believe I'm correct. It says 2025 to 2027, Angela? Sorry, through the chair? Yeah, so that's right. But like at a rough calculation, if 14,000 people in the city are paying for it, that means they're going to be paying, they're going to be paying $60 a year each. Every one of those 14,000 people. I'm just kind of trying to do the math. So we're going to be asking them. So if household has 5 people, they're basically going to be paying $300 a year through their taxes if we were to go through with that. So I'm just trying to get kind of a number of what this could cost the city of Pembroke's residents. But if we get if it's accepted, if we are successful for the grant, and we find out that it is 2.4, or our grant proposal was based on that 2.4 million contribution, does it mean we have to spend the 2.4? Or if we get a better bang for our buck, we don't have to, right? We're not committed. Okay, she's shaking. Go ahead and respond. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's correct. So this is just an estimate. As long as we spend more than the 50% of funding that they're providing us, they're not going to, hold that against us if the numbers come down lower. I will be looking at the numbers a little bit further because in my submission that I presented to FCM at the beginning of August, I had included a battery backup for the 2 fast chargers. But in speaking to ORPC and ORES, they feel that, our network is fairly reliable. So our plan was to do the initial installation with it wired so that I could accept some kind of backup power in the future, but that we wouldn't put that as, phase 1 of the project. So I will be taking that cost out. Certainly, in comparison to the North Grenville, which we're kind of using as a baseline, they had indicated $15,000 of overhead a year. Looking at the feedback we had from Left Turn, Right Turn in terms of advertising and what I expect to be roughly a $10,000 increase to insurance, we'd be looking at probably more like a $35,000 overhead component to it. So that will increase the tax levy by 0.15%. But obviously the biggest question mark is the cost of the contract itself. That's going to be the largest cost, and we will have we will know what that amount is once the RFP closes later on this year.
Thank you.
Councillor Purcell?
Just a comment. We heard from, the Parks and Rec Master Plan presentation and also the Transportation Master Plan in terms of the importance of having, public transportation within our community, and even looking at suggestions in terms of partnering with, other municipalities in terms of, sharing those costs as well, and also servicing those populations as well. So there is some opportunity here. I always said I will support transportation as long as it's affordable to our residents. So that being said, I don't think we're going to get a real appreciation in terms of the cost until we actually go out for the formal RFP. And then we'll have the costing, and then we can, again, such as the treasurer said, then we can look at, with the application outcomes as well, and looking at a go or no go discussion and vote. So I think that's where I stand. So I think that makes sense. We've gone this far. Let's continue. Let's see what it entails in terms of the RFP, so we get actual costing, and then move forward from there. So thank you.
Any further comment? Call to question. Those in favor? Approved. Next up, the appointment of bylaw enforcement officers. Mr. Hutton, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan LaBelle, the director of Protect 5, the city's animal control contractor, has notified the bylaw department that a new additional Protect 5 employee has been hired specifically for animal control purposes. The new employee is Stacy Boucher. In order to enforce the animal control bylaw and its associated amendments, Ms. Boucher must be appointed accordingly by bylaw. And further, the Planning, Building, and Bylaw Department would like Neville Carney, our new planning technician, to be appointed to enforce all bylaws of the City of Pembroke. And as such, the Planning, Building, and Bylaw Enforcement Department is recommending that the current bylaw to appoint municipal bylaw enforcement officers for the City of Pembroke be repealed and a new bylaw to be before council this evening be established.
Councillor Purcell?
So I'll move that we repeal and a new bylaw be established appointing the municipal bylaw enforcement officers as discussed.
Councillor Keel? Yes.
I'll second it, no comments.
Okay, any comments? Seeing none, call a question, those in favor? Approved, so we'll have a bylaw coming forward this evening.
Thank you.
Next up is the update of bylaw to regulate traffic. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the following report is for information purposes. It's regarding bylaw number 2020-64, a bylaw to regulate traffic in the City of Pembroke as amended. And some of the information that's included in the report was previously discussed several times, various different discussions regarding upgrades and enhancements being made, mainly related to school zone safety. The bylaw has been reviewed and wording has been updated under housekeeping. The section regarding school crossing has been removed as the City of Pembroke no longer has school crossings, those being defined as crossings that are controlled by a school crossing guard or police officer. That is the definition of a school crossing, and we don't have that anymore. So Schedule B, school crossovers, has been removed, and the crossovers previously listed are now in Schedule A, which is pedestrian crossings. There are some additional pedestrian crossings that were added. Bell Street, just west of Patricia Street, Cecilia Street at Herbert, Christie Street at Isabella Street, and Dixon Street at Peter. They've been added to the bylaw. The school zone on Isabella Street from Renfrew Street to Christie Street has been extended, excuse me, westerly to James Street. That's now in the new bylaw. Stop conditions have been established as discussed previously on 1st Avenue at Front, 1st Avenue at Gordon Street, and 2nd Avenue at Gordon Street. Those are now in the bylaw. And the amendment to the bylaw will be before council in October this year. There are no financial implications associated with this report, as most of the work was previously budgeted or was covered under our regular O&M accounts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any comments? Seeing none, as you'll be bringing forth a bylaw in October, we will wait for that. Next up is the moratorium relief of 135 Bell Street. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff recommends committee approve the relief of the city's 3-year moratorium on road cuts for the development of 135 Bell Street, effective immediately. The existing departmental policy states no excavations of roadway surfaces that have been reconstructed within the preceding 3 years shall be permitted. The developer of 135 Bell Street would like to proceed with construction of a housing development in 2024-25. The works included in the housing construction are the connections to the city's underground infrastructure, sanitary, storm, and water. They are on Bell Street. Bell Street between McKay Street and River Road was pulverized and paved in 2023 under the city's resurfacing program. It was done due to the very, very poor condition of that roadway. The existing underground infrastructure was road base, and the sub base was not reconstructed as part of that project. It was a pulverize and pave, so the rest of the road was not reconstructed. The existing water main does require replacement in the foreseeable future. It is part of the River Road Water Main Catchment Area project. It is currently under design. It's anticipated that portion of that project is 5 to 6 years out. And when we do that, we will need to do asphalt cuts and pavement restoration as part of that. As the newly installed surface will not be in place for the usual 15 to 20 years. Lately, the way budgets have been going and prices increasing, sometimes we're trying to stretch the life of our asphalt out even further, 22 to 25 years if we possibly can. New technologies with pavement preservation, we're hoping to extend some of the life. So considering that we're not planning on going back into, considering the fact that this was not reconstructed, it was resurfaced, we knew we were going to be back in there doing work in the not too distant future. I feel it is reasonable to lift the moratorium for this specific instance. No financial implications, as the developer will be responsible for all the costs associated with restoration. And the strategic plan impact of the report and recommendation relates to economic development and growth. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. Motion to approve the Operations Committee recommendation for the relief of the 3-year moratorium for a development at 135 Bell Street.
Councillor Frenier?
Second.
Okay, second. Any further comments? Questions? Seeing none, call a question. Those in favor? Those against? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Keel, Deputy Mayor. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the council meeting to order for September 17th. I would ask that everyone please take an opportunity to stand for an opening prayer and reflection. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest in relation to the council meeting this evening? Seeing none. I have only one set of minutes this evening. Approval of minutes, regular meeting of council September 3rd. I'd entertain a motion for their approval. I have the deputy mayor, second by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That is carried. Where's that? Next up, we have staff and committee reports. Councillor Plummer, I understand you have a report regarding terrain vehicle bylaw.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Worship. The Operation Committee of Council begs to report and recommends the following from its meeting this evening follows. Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor, that the amendment of the all-terrain vehicles bylaw included in the designation of Director of Operations to make changes to Schedule A of the bylaw be adopted.
Thank you. Operations Committee begging to report and recommend from a meeting held earlier this evening, moved by Councillor Plummer, second by the Deputy Mayor, that amendment to the all-terrain vehicle bylaw, including the designation of the Directors of Operations to make changes to Schedule A of the bylaw be adopted. Councillor Plummer?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the amendment of the bylaw was discussed in the meeting of council on July 16th, 2024. Discussion included granting delegation authority to Director of Operations to amend the schedule of the approved routes as necessary. Changes to Schedule A include amendments are crossing of Highway 148 from Algonquin Trail to Angus Campbell Drive to access the Pembroke Mall. Revision of approved streets in the West End using Bronx Street instead of Lee Street. Access from Mud Lake Road and Forest Road was adopted to the city approved routes. From Laurentian Valley approved routes to access amendments already included in the city's bylaw. This just gives the director more authority to make changes and not have to come back to council for every small change for the routes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Plummer. Call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. This evening, members of council, there is a number of proclamations, each in their own way being special and of significance. The first is the September 15th through to 21st is National Legion Week in the city of Pembroke. And whereas the Ontario Provincial Command of the Royal Canadian Legion represents 9 districts, which includes 390 branches with a membership of over 89,000, and whereas the Legion is a nonprofit organization assuming the responsibility of maintaining the tradition of remembrance of those who paid the supreme sacrifice by defending our great nation in past and present conflicts so that we as Canadians can live in the freedom that we enjoy today. And whereas the Legion continues to support and represent our veterans of past and present with many benefits as a result of the determination of those thousands of dedicated members at all levels of the organization. And whereas Legion branches across the province work together with their affiliated organizations, the Ladies Auxiliary, to raise funds in support of many programs with Ontario Command of the Royal Canadian Legion. Whereas with millions of dollars being raised from branch and Ladies Auxiliary projects, the Legion supports numerous programs benefiting veterans, seniors, and youth within our communities. As indicated, the week of September 15th through the 21st, so the current week, is National Legion Week. It was started off on the weekend with a Remembrance Day program of members that have passed away in the previous year at Branch 72. Let us take this time to highlight the contributions of branches across Canada, underscoring the Legion's commitment to veteran support and welcome new members to their halls. Truly, the Legion, and in particular our Branch 72, is an organization that is so beneficial to our community. So therefore, be it resolved that I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, proclaim September 15th through the 21st as National Legion Week throughout the City of Pembroke. The second proclamation is that I do hereby proclaim September 22nd through to the 28th as National Forest Week in the City of Pembroke. And whereas Canada's forests are valuable renewable resources that contribute to our economy and the livelihoods of our communities, and whereas Canada's forests play a crucial role in maintaining healthy ecosystems, clean air and water and wildlife habitat, whilst being an important aspect of climate change mitigation efforts, and whereas Pembroke and its citizens rely on the surrounding forests for livelihood, health, and recreation. Whereas this annual one-week campaign with the theme of two-eyed seeing, welcoming all knowledge to sustain our forests, will be celebrated across Canada by individuals and organizations. Again, as indicated, the week of September 22nd through to the 28th is National Forest Week. It is trite to say how reliant we are on the environment for economic reasons as well as simply justifying our well-being. Let us take time to consider the importance of forests. As Martin Luther once said, to the question what he would do if the world were to end tomorrow, and he answered, I would plant an apple tree. So therefore, I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, do hereby proclaim September 22nd through the 28th as National Forest Week. The next proclamation is that I do hereby declare September 25th as Franco-Ontarian Day in the City of Pembroke. Whereas on May 18th, 2010, the Legislative Assembly of Ontario enacted the Franco-Ontarian Day Act 2010, proclaiming September 25th of each year as Franco-Ontarian Day. And whereas the Franco-Ontarian Day Act recognizes the Franco-Ontarians commemorate September 25th to celebrate their language and heritage and also take pride in the collective accomplishments. And whereas on September 25th is the anniversary of the first raising of the Franco-Ontarian flag. Whereas by proclaiming this date of September 25th as Franco-Ontarian Day, this act officially recognizes the contributions of the Francophone community of Ontario to the social, economic, and political life of the province and the community's importance in Ontario's society. Whereas there are more than 600,000 Francophones in Ontario, the largest Francophone community outside of Quebec. Whereas Franco-Ontarian Day has become an annual occasion to celebrate the Francophone committee. Again, as indicated, September 25th is Franco-Ontarian Day. The Franco-Ontarian flag will be proudly flown here at City Hall from September 22nd through to September 27th. So therefore, I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, do hereby proclaim September 25th, 2024 as Franco-Ontarian Day in the City of Pembroke. The next proclamation is that I do hereby declare September 28th as Test Your Smoke Alarm Day in the City of Pembroke. Whereas the City of Pembroke is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires result in an average of 24,000 fires, 3,100 injuries, and 377 deaths each year in Canada. And whereas 1/3 of fatal fires in Canada do not have working smoke alarms. Whereas working smoke alarms significantly reduce the risk of dying in a home fire. And whereas the Pembroke Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrences of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. Whereas the City of Pembroke residents are responsive to public education measures and to be able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their own homes. Whereas September 28th, 2024 has been declared as Test Your Smoke Alarm Day by the Office of the Fire Marshal of Ontario to ensure Ontarians are prepared to be saved by the beep with a working smoke alarm, as it is your best chance to keep you and your family safe in the event of a fire. So, obviously smoke alarms save fire, and I shouldn't have to say any more, but apparently I do have to say more, and we do bring forward proclamations to try and educate the public yet once again that smoke alarms save lives. We as a society need to do more to raise awareness, and certainly our Pembroke Fire Department does its utmost to try and reach the public and indicate to the public that it's not enough simply to get a fire alarm. You need to test it. You need to ensure that the batteries work and make sure that it works. So, therefore, I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, do hereby proclaim September 28th, 2024 as Test Your Smoke Alarm Day throughout the City of Pembroke, and I urge all of the people of Pembroke to check their smoke alarms and to support this public safety effort of the Pembroke Fire Department. The last proclamation for this evening, a very important proclamation, is that I do hereby declare September 30th, 2024 as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in the City of Pembroke. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. Whereas the discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendations in the TRC's calls of action. And whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation. Whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish a statutory holiday, a National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, to ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process, and that September 30th has been identified as that day. So as indicated, September 30th is this day of National Truth and Reconciliation, a day to reflect upon all of the different recommendations of the Commission and to reflect upon all of these matters. The day is a solemn day of significance for our community and across this country. We honor the survivors of residential school systems and remember that those who did not return home. The flag for the National Truth and Reconciliation Day will be flown here at City Hall, and then all other flags will be reduced to half-mast on that day. And certainly myself, I will be reflecting on that particular day to commemorate the lives of those that were lost and the survivors that are still with us. So therefore, I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, do hereby proclaim September 30th, 2024 as National Day of Truth and Reconciliation in the City of Pembroke and encourage all to join in this observance. Bylaws. The first up this evening is 2024-55 to appoint bylaw officers. Councillor Keel.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Purcell, that bylaw 2024-55, a bylaw to appoint municipal bylaw enforcement officers for the City of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further that said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation.
Moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Purcell, that bylaw 2024-55, a bylaw to appoint the municipal bylaw enforcement officers for the City of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Councillor Keel.
Your Worship, we received a report in a committee meeting earlier this afternoon. This is simply to add a couple new bylaw enforcement officers to our current contingent.
Thank you, Councillor Keel. Call the question. Those in favour? That is carried. Next bylaw is 2024-56, bylaw to amend the all-terrain vehicle bylaw. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Worship. With myself, second by the Deputy Mayor, that bylaw 2024-56, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2017-69 to regulate and govern the operations of all-terrain, multi-purpose, and recreational off-road vehicles within the City of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. That bylaw 2024-56, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2017-69 to regulate and govern the operation of all-terrain, multi-purpose, and recreational off-road vehicles, otherwise known as off-road vehicles, within the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Councillor Plummer.
This was discussed earlier, just a discussion on changing some of the routes and approved roads that all-terrain vehicles can use.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favour? That is carried. Next is Resolution 2024-23, FCM grant application. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke hereby supports the city's application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund transportation stream for the implementation of an on-demand transit pilot project in our community, providing the organizational commitment to and financial support for the project and funding application to GMF, and further, that should this grant application be successful, that the city commits funding up to $2,500,000 to support the transit pilot project.
Thank you. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Purcell. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke hereby supports the city's application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund for the implementation of an on-demand transit pilot project in our community, providing the organizational commitment to and financially support for the project and funding application GMF. Further, that should this grant application be successful, the city commits funding of up to $2.5 million to support the transit pilot project. Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, this was discussed earlier tonight, presented by our treasurer. This is an application for up to $500,000 for 2 electric minibuses on demand for a 3-year pilot. So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities wanted a commitment of up to $2.5 million over 3 years with the $431,000 contingency. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Mayor's report. So good evening, everyone. I wish to bring forward my mayor's report at this time. On September 7th, I had the pleasure to attend Little Things Eatery, formerly known as Little Things Canning Company, together with the Deputy Mayor and meet with the owner, Jordan Dober. What a great sign when you see businesses thriving and continuing through different ownership, with individuals having the vision and the spirit to continue the revitalization of the downtown core. The next day, on September 8th, I had the pleasure to attend the 100th anniversary of the Pembroke Pentecostal Tabernacle Church. It is truly a blessing that we have institutions that have stood the test of time, such as this great church, which has served the faithful for over 100 years. It is truly a great service with a thought-provoking sermon. It was nice to see a wide range of ages in attendance, which illustrates to me that that church will be serving its members for the next 100 years. On September 11th, I attended and brought greetings to the Special Olympics athletes here at City Hall. It was a great opportunity to meet with all of the different Olympians, shake their hands, and to witness their determination. On September 13th, I had the pleasure to receive a donation from Legion Branch 72 on behalf of the Pembroke Handy Bus. These are much needed funds that keep that transit system going. As I've said many times, transit is certainly a very expensive enterprise, and this will allow the handy bus to continue to provide service to seniors and those with physical and intellectual challenges both in Pembroke and in Laurentian Valley. On September 15th, I had the pleasure of attending the Cenotaph and the Legion for the opening of National Legion Week, as well as the memorial service to recognize the members that have passed away at Branch 72 over the course of the last year. Truly an opportunity to consider the importance of Branch 72, our Legion, to its members and to our entire community. On a different note, I wish to bring forward that the bulky item pickup has concluded, and in keeping with the recent media release, if there are items at the curb, please remove them during this grace period. A reminder that the Golden Helmets, the OPP Elite motorcycle team, is coming to Pembroke on September 21st at 2 p.m. in the downtown, free to attend, and I encourage everyone to come out and to attend. As well, it was brought to my attention, and it is not one of the proclamations this evening because it was brought to my attention today, is that September 20th is Military Family Appreciation Day. I understand this is the 6th annual Military Family Appreciation Day. The organizers are calling on all Canadians to show their thanks to the military families by posting a message on their social platforms as an opportunity to come together as a country and say thank you to the deserving, to you as a deserving and often overlooked part of our national identity. And so that was received today, and the request to acknowledge those brave men and women. And as always, please stay safe and be kind to one another. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none. Councillor updates. Councillor Keel?
Your Worship, on September 7th, I had the opportunity to attend the Stereotypical Street Fest here in downtown Pembroke. Unfortunately for a street festival, it turned out to be the coldest and most inclement weather that we had since last winter. Nevertheless, by my estimation, hundreds of people still came through there. I know the Deputy Mayor was certainly there, and we had the opportunity to chat with a lot of residents. It was a very well received event by those that were willing to get a little cold and to get a little wet. And certainly I know I was asked to express thanks to the city for allowing the street shut down and allowing the build out from Lasso Bar. It was certainly quite interesting actually to I'm not going to lie, our downtown produces a pretty good sound when you have a live band outside, and certainly I hope that that is an event that they will look at doing again, and I wish them all the best with the weather should they choose to do that. Again, it was a fundraiser for both the Robbie Dean Center and Music Healing Veterans, who were also one of the bands that played that Saturday afternoon. This past Saturday, I had the opportunity to attend the Wise Owl Daycare fundraiser at the Pembroke Golf Club. My understanding is that that event raised over $5,000. So good for Wise Owl Daycare. I also walked away with a movie night basket from the fundraiser. It was a silent auction, Your Worship, and needless to say, I guarded my sheet quite well. Finally, I just want to give an update from the Waterfront Committee. If any residents are attending at Riverside Park, they will notice at the moment that there was a veterans plaque that was removed this past week. That was a planned removal. It has been successfully cut out of that particular monument. It was previously in front of the, I guess, the wooden structure that I believe the hardball uses. It is going to be relocated to our much more beautiful waterfront park from that sandy parking lot at Riverside. So do watch in the future. I think the hope is by next year that we will have that reinstalled down at the marina. This plaque, for those that didn't realize was there, this is where the Canada Day flag raising used to take place way back in the 90s when the Canada Day celebrations were all at Riverside Park. So we are essentially reuniting it back to where we now host our Canada Day flag raising events at the marina. So if anyone is concerned, it was a planned removal, and you will see it again as soon as we find the appropriate spot at the marina.
Councillor Keel. Any other councillor updates? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a note on behalf of the mayor and I, Community Watch meeting is this upcoming Monday, September 23rd at 7 at the Pembroke Fire Station. For more information, you can email pembrokecwatch@gmail.com, contact the mayor and myself or Steve Halpenny. We encourage everyone to come. We'll be announcing a tentative new zone that a volunteer has worked really hard to canvass her neighborhood, and that'll be announced on Monday night. The Legion fundraiser on this past Friday. Councillor Purcell and myself and the mayor were there for some chicken wings, and it was they had a good turnout. It's very important to support our local Legion. This past Sunday, I was invited to the Indo-Canadian Lions Club Lions cricket tournament. They had members from, they had two teams from Ottawa, team from North Bay, Arnprior, and they rented the field at the Riverside Park. Beautiful day, and very good comments about how beautiful Riverside Park was. And next year, they want to have 15 to 17 teams. And they worked with the Parks Department on booking the facility and that, and another facility, another opportunity to grow tourism in Pembroke for all the visitors, and nothing but good comments. And they had food after, and just a great time. And I don't have a clue of playing cricket, but it's good to see multicultural sports in the Pembroke community. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other updates? Seeing none. Councillor Plummer, I understand you have or no, sorry, Councillor Purcell, you have a motion to go into a closed session.
Thank you.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Keel that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss the proposed or pending acquisition and disposition of lands by the municipality as per section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act regarding the Gulfview Land Development Limited offer to purchase city-owned land, and litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality as per section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act regarding 273 Victoria Street, the grind option to purchase from City of Pembroke. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Keel, that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of lands by the municipality as per section 239, sub 2, sub B of the Municipal Act regarding Gulfview Land Developments Limited, offer to purchase city-owned land, and secondly, litigation or potential of litigation affecting the municipality as per section 239, sub 2, sub E of the Municipal Act regarding 273 Victoria Street, grind option to purchase from the City of Pembroke. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll now move into a closed session.